Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. We're back here. This is going to be episode number 475, and we're going to get into a whole bunch of news, as well as the latest with Star Wars The Bad Batch and the new Avatar, The Last Airbender on Netflix. I'm Alexis, and this is David. You're back here with us, the place that talks about all things going on in the world of movies and more. And there's been a lot happening, because evidently these days, when is there not a lot happening? Right here on the channel, of course, we've been gearing up toward the upcoming Dune Part 2, which in many ways is something we should have already received. We should have already seen, and it was delayed because of shenanigans. And here we are. A film that quite literally was made for the fall is now coming out in the beginning of spring, so that aspect of it is a bit weird. And so I guess some of our team have been rather emotional that I have not been overly excited for Dune Part 2. And I guess I can understand that, considering that I do really go out of my way to share a whole bunch of reactions, and I did even in things that were released in the same time, but I didn't do it with Dune Part 2. And it's not for a concentrated effort on my part to create or stir some kind of emotion in said people, let's just put it that way. It honestly just kind of happened by accident, because to me, it's just, it doesn't exist to me yet. I haven't seen it, and I just, like, for whatever reason, there's just so much happening right now in my life, both in the projects that I am like attuned to and what I am listening to, and then also with like my professional career, and there's just so much happening that I just I haven't found the time to really feel that Dune is already here. And it's kind of crazy, because it has been a considerable amount of time. The last time we talked about Dune, the last time, which was the first time we saw Dune, was October of 2021, which feels like a lifetime ago. And at the same time, it feels like yesterday. I don't know how to, space-time people, who knows how to quantify that shit, but it will mess with you literally for all of your life, because I don't know how you can quantify that. It doesn't make any sense. Because on paper, it's been a long time. In some ways, it does feel like a long time. In other ways, not so much. So yeah. But I also have to say, the idea that somehow Dune Part 2 received exceptional, like, glowing initial reactions, that's hardly surprising. And that's not me saying, well, duh, obviously these people were going to eat it up. No, that's me saying, duh, obviously it was going to be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I mean, look who made the first one such a said masterpiece in the first place. And of course, he's coming back. I mean, there literally was, seemingly, I don't really know the text as well as Peter, but I'll take his word for it, and I understand the kind of filmmaker Denis Villeneuve is. There literally was no one else that could really do what he's doing with this property in the exact way that he's doing it. He's like the Dune whisperer. Like, he is somehow being able to do the impossible, which was actually make this franchise hit in ways that studios have tried for a very, very long time. And I understand that a lot of people in the general audience crowd perhaps may have had some issues with the slow pacing of it, because, as we've been saying for a long time on this show, that for whatever reason, the general audience seems to conflate a slow pace with it being not great or bad. And I'm sorry to disappoint some of you people, but I think the point of view of this podcast is some of the best things that have ever and will ever be made come at a slow pace. It's kind of how I feel about music. I'm going to go on a slight detour on this, because this is something I've been itching to say. It is a lot of people I hate to normalize people or put them in a normie basket, but I'm going to go ahead and do that anyway for the sake of this argument. A lot of people really are of the persuasion that the best kind of music can only ever be dance tracks or like fast pace, like things that you can shake your ass to
Mm.
or like, get down to. And like, hey, some of the best music that ever will be made is in that genre of songs. No question. And if you're going to a club or if you're going to a party, that's the variety you play. Okay. But in no way should it ever be suggested that those songs are among the best ever. Or, I guess, even the better way to say it, that the best kind of music is of that variety. I don't necessarily feel the same way. I think like what I look for in a song, usually, sometimes I think the more special ones, um, are almost the same ways in what I look for in a film, right? Something of substance to say, and something that really just kind of touches you unexpectedly. And I think some of the best songs that have ever been written are slow-paced songs, are ballads, just soft ballads, power ballads. I mean, look what just won the Grammy Award for Song of the Year, and what will win the Oscar for Song of the Year. What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish. That is a song that very much has like pierced through all of us and has touched us in ways that we couldn't have possibly have anticipated. So um, I wanted to get that out there because I understand that a lot of people. This is my backward saying of talking about people's tastes somehow like letting them dictate how they judge everything else and how that's really just a mistake. And you're not really coming from a very nuanced perspective when you do that. For example, something as like utterly meaningless as the Super Bowl halftime show, which is only a little less meaningless than the Super Bowl itself, mind you, even though that somehow became the most televised event since the moon landing. Um, okay. Anyway, that was slab dab in the middle of it, and the performer there, is somebody that we all know very well, whose songs we've known for a very long time. But the problem is, that to me is the epitome of a thankless job. They say that hosting the Oscars is a thankless job. I think this is an even more thankless job because you can't please everybody, especially when they pick artists who obviously are in a specific niche, right, or a genre. And Usher is a performer that is primarily R&B, a genre, by the way, that I will sing its praises for from now until the end of time. It's a personal favorite of mine, but that's not always necessarily something you can, as I said earlier, shake your ass to. So because of that, there's not a lot of the razzle dazzle that people want from a Super Bowl halftime show, like the Lady Gagas of the world, or the Katy Perry's, or the J Lo's, or the Shakira's, or whatever. So, um, because people seem to like one thing a lot, they only ever judge everything through that particular lens. And I think in many, many ways, not just in entertainment, but throughout the way we conduct ourselves as human beings, that has proven itself to be a very damaging thing to do, not only to yourself, but to art itself across the cosmos, pretty much. And I think it makes us more hindered. It makes us far more isolated. And I think we need to start calling that shit out because if we're just allowing people to like slither back into their comfort zones, into their own echo chambers, what hope is there for anything on any level to get better? Okay. And I just want to be clear, I've had a lot of emotions these last 2 weeks, and so this is all just now just like I don't know what this rant was. I just needed to get this out there right now. The original point was about um Jesus, what was the original point? Where did we come from, David?
I don't know.
Uh
I
this what was I saying originally about how people seem to only want one, oh yeah, one specific thing. The slow pacedness of Dune. Okay,
Mm.
Dune Part 1. People did have an issue with that. I can't personally relate. because I thought it was absolutely like captivating.
Yeah.
But I feel like this new film is gonna have a lot of that, but it's also gonna deliver on a lot of the quote unquote spectacle
Mm-hmm.
and the action that people would want out of a franchise like this. So much to the point that I think even people will be willing to overlook, I guess, the slow paceness of Dune. All of the trailers, and I mean all of the trailers, have looked unbelievably phenomenal. The cast looks even better. Timothy Chalamet looks like he is about to deliver the performance of his career, and that's saying a lot, considering that this is somebody who has been giving us like basically hit after hit after hit.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak that I can't say that I've seen all of his movies, but of the ones that I have seen, he has gone above and beyond, and he has reminded everybody why he is a star. And speaking of Timothy, Wonka, which is a film that was, I think it's a little movie that maybe some people might have heard of, right? We talked about it a few weeks ago, and you and I were singing its praises. Like it was just a great role and a really, 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 I'll just say that it's a great movie. Like to me,
Mm-hmm.
like it really has stayed with me. Um, and I'm really happy that it was reported in the last week that as Wonka's been available for digital download for a while now, but it's I think soon making its way to streaming, which means we're approaching the end, if not have already ended the theatrical run for Wonka. This is a very, very, very high um, budgeted, mixed in with high expectations syndrome musical. The last time there has been a successful musical at the box office, probably going to go back to what, The Greatest Showman back in 2017, 2018?
I don't know what year it came out.
I think it was around that time. Um, because there've been so many musicals that have been bombing left and right. We had the Cats fiasco. Then there was the COVID year with both Inside Out and West Side Story. Nobody cared to see them. And even at the exact same time that Wonka was prevailing, Color Purple was flatlining. No one saw the Color Purple musical in theaters, but they saw this one. And there's a lot to say, probably as to why that would be. Well, the name itself, the star,
Mm-hmm.
also the very successful marketing campaign um, of hiding the fact that it was a musical. I am very, very sure that the majority of people that went to go see it did not think it was a musical. Do you know how I know this? Because it made $600 million worldwide, because musicals just don't make money anymore. So obviously the entire world was bamboozled into thinking this was not a musical. But you know what it kind of revealed? It didn't fucking matter. People still loved it anyways. It was a serious crowd pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
which really kind of proves what a complete batshit idea it is that people are just so of the persuasion, well, musicals are not for me, so I'm not going to go and watch it. People are having a conniption fit right now about like, why is it that studios are hiding the music in trailers? Because audiences have shown again and again they're not interested in musicals. At least that's what they say. But when they're tricked into going into one, well, look at that. They loved it. Wonder what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there's varying degrees of quality for the musicals we've had lately, for sure, but there's some wiggle room there. And I think that is a great accomplishment. Like $600 million a musical? Wow. And I know that Peter and Kyle were like, well, I think they have a special relationship with Willy Wonka, and they also have a special relationship with film. But I'm also willing to bet a lot of people just forgot Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory had music in it. I don't know what it is, but I think people just blocked that out. Because how else do you explain how it is that people were so surprised? Wait, it's a musical?
That's true.
You see?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird thinking back on like the Willy Wonka part. I'm mostly just thinking about the chocolate and stuff. And literally the only musical moment that I do think about is Pure Imagination, obviously. But like, I mean, that yeah, you could be right. People just kind of forget that Willy Wonka is a musical
I
in
did.
itself.
I forgot it was a musical. I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, I hadn't thought about that movie in many, many years up
Yeah.
until this film was about to come up, and then I saw it again. And of course, the only one that I remembered very vividly was Pure Imagination. Everything else was like, what? Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess that was something. I just forgot it existed.
Especially when the
I
best
think,
song is the one with the grandpa walking. I forgot the name of it.
yes.
That's like to me that's the best song.
If Peter were here, he would sing you the whole thing.
For sure. Also, a quick thing. You said Inside Out. Did you mean In the Heights when you mentioned West Side
Yes.
Story?
Yes. I apologized. I have been very tired lately. You can probably hear it. You can probably see it in my face. So I apologize if I said Inside Out. Although we were talking about that earlier today on the chat.
uh,
So it's not that far away, but I meant In the Heights. Jesus Christ. In the Heights.
you said Inside Out, and I'm like, hold on. I feel
Thank
like
you for catching that. Thank you for catching that. Because I seriously did. I in here I said it's In the Heights, and then it came out as Inside Out. Maybe I had a stroke. Who knows? Maybe I am gonna have a stroke. Who knows? Okay. Anyway, very happy for the movie Wonka, and very happy for Timothy. And it is really gonna bolster this Dune film. I am hopeful people are gonna come out, because literally it has been a wasteland. It has been an absolute wasteland. And now, let me just say something. I have been to the movies already a lot this year. I think I counted the other day. I think I've been to the movie theaters at least 8 times. Not a single one of those times has been to a new 2024 release. Not a single one of those times. Now, that isn't to say I didn't see new movies. It just so happened that these new movies came from 2023, but were only just now becoming available in 2024. Films like American Fiction and Poor Things and All of Us Strangers. And then other watches were holdovers like Wonka, Color Purple, Iron Claw, and then Turning Red, which we did last week. Although that, I guess we should say 3 weeks ago at this point. So why haven't I gone and seen Beekeeper or Argyle or Mean Girls or Madam Web? And I feel like the answer to that question should be pretty obvious. It's the same reason most people haven't gone to see them. It's because more so than usual, the beginning of this year has been an absolute embarrassment for many different people. Now, I think the argument can be made that this is going to happen because of the strikes. Now, granted, January always has like a wonderful selection of diarrhea. But when it comes to February, that's when we begin to get some good stuff in there. It ain't here. It's not here. It's, I mean, it's nowhere to be seen. And you can't get any lower than Madam Web, which we will get to in a minute. Do not think we're not just going to acknowledge what happened there. But because it's been such a wasteland, Dune is coming at the perfect time, because there's nothing. There's nothing. Dune comes out next week. Dune comes out the first day of March. And not a moment too soon. So who knows? Maybe it being pushed back from October to March may have been a godsend for the film. You never know how these things work out sometimes. But because of how much of a disaster it's been like before the fact, it might even benefit because of that. Because people the ones who are left that generally frequent the film, the movies, they might now are like, well, God, we need something good, because it has been absolute shit these last 2 months. Like horrible film after horrible film after horrible film. So, yeah.
Weren't we worried when they first announced it was coming out in March that we were like, oh no, no one's gonna see it like on that date. No one's gonna see a blockbuster on that date. But now we're kind of
Yes.
like, it's kind of the only one that's like worth watching.
Yeah, and I think nobody could have foreseen just how bad January and February were going to be. Now, granted, I think March and April remind me. I don't know what else comes out. I know that in April Challengers comes out. I
Mhm.
don't know how much competition it's going to have, but you know what? It may not even it may not even be that much.
No.
I think in maybe in some instances, um, Dune is going to have all of the attention to itself. Uh, Whereas if it had came out in October, it would have been competing with Flower Moon, especially, and then other things, maybe even the Marvels, I think. So which wasn't that much competition, to be fair, but
Mhm.
still, there's a big difference between having some competition and having no competition. This has the whole like audience to itself,
Yeah.
and that can only help it,
Yeah.
especially with the premium screens. Now, I don't know, we haven't discussed it just yet, but I know that there is an interest amongst our group, and I mean Peter and Kyle, well, I should say maybe more so Peter, to go see the film in IMAX. And if maybe perhaps for our first time, we won't just do that, but I expect. Look, this is how much I don't sweat it when it comes to certain people. Denis Villeneuve, Dune Part Two, it was always going to be great. It was only a matter of how great is it going to be. And so like I know at this point I'm going to walk in and I'm going to be wowed
Mhm.
because I wasn't the first one, and I think this is a terrific filmmaker. It's really a no-brainer. So I can already say this will be a great film, and this will be a film that we will see many, many times in theaters. So that's not even up for the question. Because literally every piece of marketing, every piece of just footage from this has just reinvigorated the fan base even more so, and yeah, people are just ready for Dune. They're ready for it. And hopeful, of course, for its prospects as to how successful it's going to be ultimately. How ready are you guys for Dune?
I'm pretty ready. Me and Ali are actually reading the book for turn to page. It's fantastic so far, honestly. I'm like, I don't know, only 80 pages in, but like literally that book, every single word just captures you, honestly. Like I'm in
Wow.
usually when I'm reading, I'm sort of drifting over the words. It's like, okay, I get it. We're in this place. We're gonna do this. We're having some fun here. This one, I'm like, every single word. I'm like, okay, I get you. I know what's happening in this moment. Part of it is because I saw the first one, so like I understand what is exactly going on here. But still, I think it's the fact I can still do that
I
after
don't
watching
know
the
at the
movie.
pace that you're reading it, but there's going to be a point where you're going to cross over from part one to part two because
Mm-hmm.
part one and part two are literally like from one book.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen first. Are you going to see the part two stuff in the movie, or are you going to read about it in the book?
Well, I mean, we want to get it done before the movie comes out, so
Oh, okay. So
so
your
that's
goal is to read and finish it before watching the film. You've got a
yeah,
couple of days.
yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Right now in the book, I'm in the part where Timothy's character. There's a lot of names in this book. I'm not gonna fucking remember
Paul Atreides.
this. Okay, I was right. I was
I don't
scared
know
to say
how
it.
I remember that one, but there's a lot of names. I
Yeah.
remember Paul Atreides.
Mhm. Paul stops that like little droid thing that was going to assassinate him. Do you remember
Oh
that?
yes,
I'm in that
yes.
part basically. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Mhm.
Yeah, man, me too. Me too. I just wish I didn't have to do all these other fucking things that I got to do before I do that first.
Mhm.
Jesus Christ. So that's what kind of has made me just be out of it, is that I have to focus my attention on work and other things. So yeah, Dune's coming out. People should go and see it. Go celebrate it. It's gonna be great. That's not even a question.
Mhm.
Um, so everyone is gearing up toward that. Um, I know the industry itself is gearing up toward the Academy Awards, but you may have noticed in the last few weeks, our show particularly has not really been talking as much about them. And I think there's a pretty obvious reason as to why. For one, the shows kind of took a hiatus. Like after Globes and Critics' Choice, the BAFTAs just happened last week. They feel like it was a whole month in between. And I think that speaks to the problem that people are kind of having right now. And I've been noticing this idea come across all the chat boards on Reddit, and then also all the people who I follow who are very closely in this space, who are saying this is ridiculous. Like, how is it that we went like so many weeks in a row, literally nothing happened? We're at the point now, we're at the end of the month, February. We should have already had the Academy Awards at this point. This is kind of a joke. Like, the Oscars still are not for like, what, 2 or 3 weeks. And that's kind of insane, especially because there's no anticipation. We already know who the winner is. We already know who the winner of 7 Oscars is going to be. That's not up for debate. It's already done. Like, this literally is not. Okay, let me calm down. This is not the optimal awards season, I guess, from any of our perspectives, because a lot of things that we would like to happen are not happening. Now, I'm not saying, well, our favorites aren't winning. It's the idea that we can't seem to just have these different groups think for themselves. They all just want a rubber stamp, or they all just agree on what the best is. And even if that's the case, it's just fucking boring. It really is, when every single show picks the exact same people to win all the time. And it's like, what is the point of all of these award shows? It is all just going to be the same person going up to the podium and saying the exact same goddamn thing. So this is not even like, oh man, I can't wait for the Oscars. It's like, oh, what time are you going to watch the coronation of Christopher Nolan? Oh, well, I guess I'll watch that, right? Because, like, I mean, the only thing that's remotely interesting, and even then, the Academy at large does not care because they don't consider animation a serious enough medium, because they only ever nominate animated movies in that one category now. It is a fucking joke in these last 2 years. Because you know what? There are plenty of other places. Some of these animated films are so great they should have been in other places. The idea that Pemberton, Hisaishi, and last year Desplat were not nominated for their scores for Boy and the Heron, Spider-Verse, and Pinocchio, absurd. Completely absurd. That's just in score. But there were serious Spider-Verse especially, like, I'm sorry. That film is of such caliber. You not seriously are going to consider it for things like screenplay, visual effects, editing, sound, production design. Like, those things should be up for it, because you know what? The film is that great. This past weekend, David, I happened to rewatch the movie not once but 2 times over. Because it's in that league of movies where it is so good, you can't help but just immediately go back and watch it again. That movie might very well be the film of a generation. I'm just going to put it out. And that's what I felt like the first weekend I saw the film. More so than Infinity War. You mark my words here. More so than Infinity War. Across the Spider-Verse, I think, has a better mantle to being The Empire Strikes Back to a generation. Because that is a film that is firing on all cylinders and is a hell of a cliffhanger. I mean, the way people were reacting to the "to be continued" at the end is something I'm never going to forget. And it is also, I think, by many respects, it should be considered in that conversation of like, what is the best movie of the year? And let me just tell you something. I love Oppenheimer. I just saw it again a few weeks ago. It's brilliant. But we've had a lot of great films this year for everyone to just say, well, Oppenheimer, that's it. Hold the phone. There were plenty of other movies that we could have at least had a conversation about. And I'm not just talking about Spider-Verse. What the fuck happened to Flower Moon?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck happened there? Like, going into the season back in January, it looked like something that very well could be formidable. It got the nominations. It had the repertoire. It had the names. It had the moment in a lot of ways. It even had Lily Gladstone sweeping before January happened. And then once the Globes hit its face on the floor, and has not recovered since. Sure, it got 10 Oscar nominations. Yeah, I got 10. It ain't gonna win one. It ain't gonna win one. The only one that was even hoping for was Lily Gladstone. And guess what? She and her team made the decision that perhaps she should run and lead instead of supporting, thus throwing away an easy victory. And because of that decision, Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers is now going to win the Oscar that, quite frankly, would have been Lily's in a walk. But what did Lily do? She decided to go up against Emma Stone. And guess who's winning everything right now? It has been Emma Stone. Now, granted, at the time of this recording, SAG hasn't happened. Lily could very well win SAG, and I bet I'm just betting you right now, if Lily wins SAG, every one of those fuckers is going to go like, you see, Lily had it the whole time. She's going to win the Oscar. And you know what? That might well happen because Oscar voting is happening right now. That would not be a bad prediction. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, let's be real here. Lily is no longer the front runner to win Best Actress. She was before the Globes happened. But it seems that she's hit a wall. And Emma is claiming all those prizes. So the bigger issue, though, is Flower Moon is an incredible picture. And one that all of us here were quite moved by. That isn't to say Oppenheimer isn't. It very much is. And we also were moved by that as well. Very much so. But it's like, to me, this isn't one of those years where it's like, oh, one movie clearly towers above everything else. To be clear here, if you ask the Globes, if you ask Critics' Choice, BAFTA, the Academy, they will disagree. Clearly, it's Oppenheimer, which is why it will win 7 Oscars, maybe even more. But if you ask us, hold the phone here. There were plenty of films that came out last year that are worthy of discussion for Best of the Year. But no, we're not going to have that discussion with them. So let them pick who they want to pick. Let them get the fuck out of the way. And then we can come in here with our top 10 and we can tell you what the correct films of the year were for the top 10. Wow, can you tell how not so salty, bitter I am about this whole situation? I'm just like, they really have taken the fun out of award season. Who gives a shit? Well, we're going to watch it. We're going to review it. It might be a disaster. It might not be. Who knows? But the most important part of this is stay tuned for our top 10 show. And David's going to be on this for the very first time with us. And that's going to be exciting because that's never happened before. We don't know the full roster of people who are going to be on that show just yet. It will be crazy. We just don't know how crazy it's going to be yet. That's a promise. I swear to God, that is a promise because you just never know how freaking chaotic it's going to be. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, getting that shit out of the way. Before I even go any further, anything you wanted to say personally on where the race is right now and how you feel, if you feel anything about it whatsoever, or are you just over it, you're done, we just want to move on to 2024?
Move on to 2024.
There's one thing, David, there's one thing I forgot to mention. There is actually one race that's kind of a coin flip. Animated feature.
Oh, yeah. Boy and Heron.
That's the only one where what's going to win there?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only one where I'm like, personally, I'd be happy whoever wins.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see who wins. Um, but that's a hard pick. Do you go with potentially the last Miyazaki film, or do you go with a sequel, which they don't normally do? The only sequel to ever win animated feature is Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4. No other films that were sequels that got nominated were even selected to win. That being said, I would think that more people in the Academy watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse than The Boy and the Heron. But that's just a wild shot in the dark guess. I can't back that up with any data, so there's that. All right, let's get on to something more fun. Tell me, what have you made of the hysteria going that has been spun up by Madam Web?
It's a disaster, honestly. I mean, it is a little bit disappointing because I really thought, oh, okay, yes, it's Madam Web, it's a character no one really cares about, but it's a spider person. Maybe this one will be more fun than the past ones.
David, you're really trying to tell me here you had some expectation that this would be something decent?
I said fun.
Really? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Never mind. Well, hold on. Wait, you know what? Let me stop you there. Who said at its current form it can't be its own form of fun? I was literally approached by somebody today at work. This guy often converses with me about latest films. He seems to be the kind of person that goes and watches movies a lot. And he told me that one of the best times he's had lately at the movies was watching Madam Web, because it was so bad he couldn't stop laughing at it. So, from that perspective, is it fair to say maybe it is a little fun?
I ain't sure, but I wasn't expecting a so bad it's good type of movie. But I mean, it's Sony. It's their Spider-Man movies. It's not really much to expect, sadly. But yeah.
I know you weren't expecting it, but would you really be that opposed to it? Like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, the response has been so overt, and the clips that I have seen from it have made me laugh so much. It's made me contemplate, do I want to go see this? This looks like a shit show, and I might have fun watching that. Who doesn't like watching a train wreck? Now, hey, let's be real here. Sometimes they're not that fun. There have been a lot of things recently where we would have expected so bad, so good, and it's actually so bad it's boring. Inhumans, for example, is one of those examples where we were amping it up because, like, wow, this is gonna be such shit. It's gonna be so much fun. It wasn't fun. And for a lot of people, Madam Web wasn't fun, and it made people a lot of angry. And you know what? I don't want to sound like a snarky asshole here, but it kind of made me laugh how some people came out so visibly angry. How dare Madam Web? The fuck kind of expectations did you have in the first place? I mean, I'm sorry. We've had 24 comic book movies that have come out in the 2020s. That's on the back of, I don't know how many came out in the 2010s. You should know at this point that Sony Marvel has no shame. They have no standards. And on top of all of it all, they are embarrassingly incompetent. They're the people who not only made Morbius, but they also re-released it because they were tricked into it by some kind of meme, Morbin time happening. And they made even bigger fools of themselves. And if you thought the embarrassment ended there, then they hired those people to write the film we're talking about right now, which is Madam Web. These people have no sense whatsoever. And I am sorry, we're way past the point where, especially people who are like, if you're invited to a press screening, you know how things are, okay? The idea to come out of this movie, of all movies, and like being angry or like, wow, this was so bad, or honestly expecting anything from Sony, I will say, I know I said I didn't want to come off this way, but I'm gonna end up coming off this way. Um, I'm at the point where we're so inundated. We're so overwhelmed with so many comic book movies. I don't mind them coming out bad, especially if it's gonna be like, even, hey, if it ends up being a so bad so good. I haven't seen Madam Web, clearly. But there's a chance it could be a so bad so good. That's something. That's something I can be entertained with. That's something I can laugh at and have a good time over. The same can't be said for the vast majority of everything else that's coming out. So I know I'm taking a really backwards approach to what people want out of it. I mean, obviously this was nothing that people want out of a comic book film, but Sony was never going to make that movie anyway. I mean, the idea for a Madam Web movie was also just kind of stupid, because they're just trying to pick whatever characters they have the rights for, making a movie out of that. And then look at the level that we're operating. Like, they're so unbelievably stupid. They actually thought that this thing would work in service to build up whatever the fuck they think is going to be built up over there between Morbius and Madam Web. Like, as this film was finished and put to theaters, there was still some executives in there like, well, we got a grand plan and there's this team up thing happening. It's like, you guys are, first of all, in the wrong decade for that. That's falling out of favor. Number two, you guys are making films that would make comic book films that came out in the early 2000s look like Citizen Kane. I mean, the CW puts you to shame. And I mean the worst of the CW, not the best. There's a big difference between the best and the worst of the CW. The worst of the CW puts you to shame. There literally is nothing lower than Sony Marvel. You can't get any lower than that. That is rock bottom. So I'm sorry, but I don't accept any kind of like surprise or disappointment at the result of this movie. This was going to be what it was always going to be. And you know what? They fucking deserve it. And they deserve to be dragged. And I like Chris Stuckman. I think he is a really good individual in terms of like, I know where this, you know where this is going. I gotta have my piece here, because I
was very curious if we were gonna bring this up. So
yeah, well, I mean, we're talking about Madam Web, so it's got to be now. Look, Chris Stuckman has been somebody that I know that I personally have followed for like, I think almost 10 years now at this point. Like, he very much has been one of those voices that I would, study and look for and have a serious value on, like, what he would say about movies, especially in the early days. In the early days that we were doing YouTube with Barely News Group 10 years ago. As the years have gone on, he and I, as individuals, do grow, obviously, right? And tastes change and they expand. And what also has changed is that Stuckman himself has started making his own movies. And he's now not just only talking about movies, but he's also making movies himself. Really, the only reason he even has the channel in the first place is to finance his projects and to finance himself. And not knocking that, the dude has earned that right, for sure. Get that money. And he's also earned the right to make his movies. I'm not saying he hasn't. But this is the problem that happens when you try to have it both ways, right? When you try to be in both sides of the arena, because then you get caught in situations like this, because he literally had a whole video that basically explained why he wouldn't review Madam Web. And he gave a lot of reasons. Personally, I found it rather insulting as a fan of the Eternals movie, mind you. How he said Madam Web like a million more times than Eternals. Eternals was not acknowledged. Its existence was not acknowledged on his channel, because at that point he had made the turn to like, I'm just not going to review movies that I don't like. He made that choice around the time Eternals came out. It's like, okay. But he felt the need to say something about Madam Web, in that he wasn't going to review it because. And I will sympathize with him when he says that, look, he doesn't feel right to attack filmmakers, especially when circumstances indicate they were not the problem. Okay. S.J. Clarkson, I believe, is the director of this film. She is a long-standing television director of such shows like The Defenders, and I believe Succession and something else. Like she's a well-established person. This is her first film in the theater. Yeah, like she
Defenders? Really?
Or Defenders, or The Punisher, or Daredevil. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of those. Yeah. This person has directed mostly TV. But again, that when you're someone who directs mostly TV and you go into a movie, did S.J. Clarkson write the script? No. So I understand him wanting to maybe defend her and the other professionals who were basically just given a disaster. And it's like the people who should be blamed most are, yes, the screenplay, the writers, they wrote this shit. But at the same time, who gave them the job? Who supervised them the entire way through? Sony. Sony owns this. This is exactly what they wanted. And they thought this was releasable. They're the ones, and I think what Stuckman may be helping to, maybe that's not his intent, but I do think that perhaps inadvertently he may bring more awarenesses in. When we talk about bombs, we should try and make sure the appropriate individuals who are responsible for it being so bad in the first place are spotlighted and singled out. In this case, no one has more responsibility than Sony and the writers. But in a lot of other cases, I mean, look, go no further than Zack Snyder and J.J. Abrams. We have gone over it so many times over for literally all the films that they have had, maybe even ever, but especially in the last 10 years. And I'm sorry, but like at some point, that mentality is only going to get you so far, because you're going to have to acknowledge that it's bad, and you or your reasons why you didn't like it, and you're going to have to provide criticism for the people who made it. So this sparked this whole debate on film Twitter about like, well, and a lot of people came to his defense like, yeah, but like why would we trash filmmakers? Why are we going to trash people at a time where like film is like suffering from all these different and it's under siege by the studios? David Zaslav has made it his life's mission to destroy Warner Brothers and literally everything else around him in the movie space. Like I get that perspective. I get wanting to come together and be unified in this, but what you're basically saying is let's just turn a blind eye to the horrible shit out there and let's not criticize it. David, I just want to me, do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like the same group of people who are saying, don't mention Joe Biden's age, because if we talk about it, it's going to be an issue. it's going to be an issue in the election no matter if you talk about it or not.
Hmm.
So to me, you're giving these people a pass. We have to talk about why things don't work for us to understand and appreciate the things that do.
Hmm.
If we don't do that, God help us where we're going to be. Sorry, David, go ahead.
Well, yeah. So the two things that bother me is that whole idea of like attacking the filmmakers and all that, the creators of it and all that. I mean, I would like to be in the industry one day, and like, I'm still doing this. My thing though is just like, if someone comes up to me like didn't like something that I said about their movie, maybe they'll be like, "Oh, you're a bit too mean on it." It's like, okay, fine, sorry if I seem too mean, but the criticism still stands. Like,
Yeah.
if I say it's bad, like if I say, "Oh, this is the worst movie of the year," blah blah blah, it's like, okay, fine, I could have been a little bit nicer, but it's still the worst movie of the year, though. Like, why? Like, please correct me on that or something, you know. And then the other thing that bothers me is to me, like, I didn't want to watch Madam Web as soon as those first reviews came out, being like, "This is the worst movie of the year" and all that. I didn't want to watch it just because for these Sony movies, they need to stop. you know, like, I will not take anything more after this. If the next review isn't, "Oh, this is the best movie of the year," I'm not gonna watch it. Like, anything lower than that, I'm not gonna watch it, because you've made shitty movies and you really just need to stop and take your fucking time to do what's next, or to do the best thing what's next. Sorry. So yeah, that's just my thing for it. I don't like the idea of him being like, "Oh, I don't want to review it because I don't want to trash it." It's like, it's fine to like say that it's bad, my guy. Obviously you don't have to go into so much detail. Just tweet it. "Hey, wow, this movie really sucked." That's perfectly fine. You don't have to make a video about it. But for me specifically, I say don't to people, don't watch it, just because even if you say, "Yeah, it's fun, it's so bad, it's fun," and all that, it's like, I don't care. Somebody needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
They need to stop these. And I don't know how they haven't even thought about making a Spider-Gwen movie. I mean, at this point, like, don't make it, because obviously it's going to suck. But like, like, how are you not making a Spider-Gwen? How are you not making a what is it, Miguel O'Hara from Spider-Verse and all that? Like, how are you not making those movies instead? That's why I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, Madam Web, it's a spider person. Maybe this will be something." But no, you ruined that. And so for me, I say whatever movie comes next, whoever gets early access to it, if it's anything lower than best movie of the year, everyone else, don't bother watching it.
And the embarrassment, look, real quick, there's another one of these coming out later this year called Craven. So, and that'll most definitely suck and be laughed at in its own right as well. Madam Web is a particular like low. This is a
Mm-hmm.
new low for not just them, but for the industry at large. Like, this also could not come at a worse time, because if you're just a general audience person and if you gambled on this, you're like, you know what? I think people would probably walk out of that movie thinking, wow, this genre is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurts all of the movies going forward. That's bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very bad. Um, but I mean, I don't know, man. I still feel like if a film looks like shit and a film sounds like shit, and if it comes from a studio that makes nothing but shit, what really did you expect?
Mm-hmm.
That's just where I come from. Um, I personally do consider the fact that if it did end up becoming a so bad it's so good, that's something that we should appreciate in its own right, but not because that's what they were trying to do. I don't mean it from that standpoint. I just mean it from a standpoint of entertainment. But this should never be considered a success for them. This is obviously such a colossal failure and an embarrassment. Um, yeah. Maybe this might be one of those movies to do a reaction to on our channel. Not that we would pay to see it,
Hmm.
but at that point we wouldn't pay to see it.
Hmm.
So that might
Maybe.
be something. Might be fun. We can consider that for. And speaking of that, by the way, we recently just did one with you and me and Alexis Moreno. We did a reaction audio commentary, which you will see on our channel soon, for the Disney Pixar film Elemental. Um, and we've also did one last month on The Little Mermaid 2023. So we're gonna try and at least get one out a month.
Yeah.
That's our goal. It looks like. Um, and so we don't really know ahead of time until
Hmm.
I think we sit down. We kind of make up our minds. Okay, what do we want to do at that point? So I don't have really an announcement. I feel like what the next one's going to be, and even if I made that announcement, it would probably be like something else anyway. So I'm
Hmm.
not going to make any promises, but we're going to attempt to do more of these. So there's that. Anywho, um, with that out of the way, um, shall we go ahead and get into, well, which one do you want to talk about first? Avatar or Bad Batch?
Uh, Avatar.
Okay. Um, this is gonna be interesting. This is not gonna be a full-blown review of season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender 2024 because we have not seen it. We've only seen out at the first episode. But believe me, there's already so much to say and more with just that one episode, and we still think it's 7 or so more to go. Um, okay. Let me just re give the spiel that we always do, and then you can take it from there, David. How's that?
Hmm.
On Red Spotlight, we are proponents in the idea that live action remakes of animated properties are doomed to fail because, historically speaking, they've all sucked. They're garbage, and they're among the worst things that have come out in the last few years. And the people who enjoy those things have made life miserable for the rest of us. And whatever disappointment you get from these live action adaptations not perfectly capturing what you wanted to see in live action, good. I'm happy you didn't get it. And you can go fuck yourself. Um, Terrible movies, terrible decisions. Animation is a superior medium to live action. It does not compete. And every time this happens, there are side by side comparisons, and in no way is there a comparison. The live action version is completely like muted, no color whatsoever. You can barely tell what's going on, and it might even look ugly. Oftentimes, it'll look ugly. Versus in the original, it is vivid, it is vibrant, it is alive, and you are looking at art. This was no exception. At least the idea of it. Um, there's nothing wrong with the idea of a live action Avatar show, but with it just being a remake of the same story, this could only ever be lesser. Um, Konietzko and DiMartino left. That was another nail in the coffin. And then in the weeks up to this coming out, so many more red flags came out, which are just more of the usual things that we see when these things come out, which is they stretch out the story to things that really didn't need to be focused on in the first place. They try and do needless changes, cosmetic changes to make you feel as if, oh, this is a new version, when it really isn't. Um, so that's how we feel about it. And then we watched it. We watched the first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender 2024. Um, I'm gonna start with one thing that I liked.
Hmm.
How about that? Let's just what the hell? Um, I did get a kick out of the fact that one of the choices they made was to have a scene between Iroh and Aang. Because as has been mentioned in our like audio in our reviews from 4 years ago, Iroh and Aang are among the best characters in a show full of great characters. And one of the things that we did bring up then and there was how they rarely, if ever, interacted on the show, which is crazy. Because those two are characters that I think honestly we did wish had more things to say to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting to see a version of it anyway, where they're coming face to face, was interesting. So there's that. Um, that's it.
Hmm.
Go ahead. That's it.
I'll add one thing to that, which is that the
Oh,
actors.
I'm sorry. One actor in particular, one character that I actually really enjoyed with limited screen time was Monkey Atsu.
Yeah.
He was really good.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say all the actors. I think the casting is pretty good so far. And again, we only saw the first episode, but I mean, I remember people getting images of the kid playing Aang, and it was just this one small picture of him doing this head tilt and all that, and they literally put it side by side with the animated Aang, and we're like, okay, this kid is Aang, and I think he is. I think they did a good. He's doing a good job so far. So that's another compliment that I'll add on to that. Although there are some slight problems with Aang and Iroh meeting, though. I'll get to that. But oh my god! First of all, that the introduction was not necessary. Absolutely none of it was necessary. The whole Fire Lord coming up with the plan, how to attack the Airbenders and all that, not necessary. We didn't need to know how he planned it out. We just needed to. All we ever needed to know was that he used the comet to
The opening scene where someone is being chased because he wants to go and take the secret plans, that felt like something out of Star Wars. Where like you need to they got the secret plan to the Death Star, they got to give it to somebody to go to and send to the Earth King to let them know about the war that's coming. All of that was useless. Off the bat, I was like, wow, we're already getting to things that we didn't need to see.
So yeah, that was all unnecessary. And then we see, you mentioned the guy playing Macchiazzo. Everything with him and Aang was great. I liked the relationship. I actually really felt like, okay, there's a good friendship going on here. That's all good. Oh, but the first introduction of Aang, though, what is he doing? He's flying. No. Oh my god. We went on and on about how, like, oh, you don't understand the story here. You don't understand the characters. Add on to the fact that they don't understand bending. Like, I'm sorry, but bending, it is a state of mind. Like, Iroh says it at some point in the second season, like, air is the element of freedom. The air nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns and found peace and freedom. In the Kyoshi book, Kyoshi's mother is an airbender, but she left the air nomads to become a criminal. But the more she kept like getting a part of the whole criminal underworld, the more she lost connection to her airbending, because she was attaching herself again to the criminal underworld, not detaching herself from everything else. And that's how Kyoshi got the fans, because her mother used fans to give her like a little leg up when she started losing her airbending powers and all that. So bending is a state of mind. In Legend of Korra, I forgot the villain's name, but this one dude, he's all about, letting go of all attachments and everything. When his girlfriend died, that was the last attachment he had to this world. And after that, he was able to fly. That is how you are able to fly as an airbender, is if you detach himself from everything. People have like theorized, probably the reason why airbenders have flying bisons is because that's the only thing attaching them to the world. That's why they can't fly. So already this show just doesn't understand bending itself, and it's fucking up.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That is pretty bad.
And I really want to I also like I bring this whole thing up too because like I don't want people thinking like, oh, you just want one to one comparison. It's like, no, there is deep levels of this shit in this show. Okay, that like I will get into it. I mean, so yeah, and then we see the whole attack of it, and I mean, the fighting looks cool, I guess, and all that, but again, it just wasn't necessary. And then we get into the actual introduction of the whole water, earth, fire. CGI looked terrible in that moment. What the fuck? And
It
in
looked
this show,
bad. It was bad. Come on.
the CG in the intro
Yeah.
looked bad. I liked the CG of the whole air temple. Like that one, it looked.
No, that was good.
Yeah, that one was
Yeah.
really good. But why would you do that with the
Yeah.
introduction of it? And I mean, again, I know people are going to be complaining that I wanted 1-to-1, but like part of the reason why in the introduction of the animated one was just a background and then silhouettes of them bending. For one thing, they had no idea who to use for those characters. Like they didn't want people to kind of like guess, oh, they're going to come out in the show later on or something. But also, the animated show itself, it didn't really have like a lot of money and resources, so they kind of had to like be limited on like what they can show and all that. And so I think the animated one just did it better in the introductions because like it was just simple, it got to the point. And then they changed the entire dialogue too of the introduction, and I'm like, it almost feels like, do you remember in Amazing Spider-Man where the Uncle Ben in that movie was trying to say,
oh yes,
I wish I could pull up the whole dialogue, but like it was this thing of like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just say, with great power comes great responsibility or something.
Yeah.
And then it was made even worse later on in in the episode when Gran says the entire introduction. It's like, so then why would you do this whole thing? We didn't need this. Like, that was enough. Oh my god. I had problems with the introduction of Zuko. I can't remember the exact dialogue, but like, I don't know. I just kind of, I feel like they
so much of this I'm already struggling to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like I watched this yesterday. Those things you just mentioned, I do recall. But when you just said the introduction of Zuko, I'm like, what is his introduction? He just kind of shows up. He's just kind of there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he is kind of there. But like, what bothers me though is that Aang comes out of the iceberg and he has like all these statues of the past. Zuko, I mean, has all these statues of the past avatars, and they start glowing and all that. So he starts seeing it. They see the beam of light. And I just don't like. I mean, I don't remember if this is actually how it went down in the animated one.
No. I just saw it today. He sees the glow from his ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like he actually sees it. He's on like on the deck.
Okay.
And he sees it, and he already knows what it is. And so he gets to his uncle. It's like, it's the Avatar. Let's go.
Okay.
Like that's how simple it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's just, it bothered me though that like the beam of light comes up and Iroh's just kind of like, I could have been this or something. It's like, I feel like Iroh would just be more supportive of his decision to follow that light, especially when other crew members.
Let me be fair though. That happened in the animated show.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I just saw this today. Maybe it was more callous in the live action version, but Iroh was like, are you sure this is what you think it is? Like, we've been doing this so many times. We can go there if you want, but it could be anything. So Iroh wasn't like thinking that it was the Avatar, which I think in retrospect, knowing how much we know about Iroh now, maybe that feels a bit inconsistent. But you also got to keep in mind, we are talking about the very first episode. Like, I don't know if they had fully formed ideas yet of like who these characters are going to be when it came to the end. I don't think they did. I mean, so I think to us, maybe that may seem a bit inconsistent to what we know them to be today, but that's not who they were at the very beginning. Shows change all the time as they go. Remember, Peter had a big issue with Iroh's characterization in the first season because there was an episode where he was literally throwing himself at a younger woman, like Master Roshi, basically from Dragon Ball, if you recall. So which that was the only instance he ever did anything remotely like that.
Mhm.
So you could maybe say that, as first seasons do, they experiment with things.
Mhm. Okay. So
So
yeah.
just
Okay.
to be fair about that,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
because I know we're going to be attacked already just for having this discussion, but I don't want to be attacked for dumb shit like this.
Mhm.
Which is why I want to go back and watch the first one so I can have that comparison. And before we even get attacked again, why are you making a direct comparison? Because the show is making a direct comparison. Okay,
Mhm.
fuck off with that shit. Don't even come at us with the idea that we can't compare it to the original. It's comparing itself to the original by even existing. Shut the fuck up.
Mhm.
Continue.
No, yeah. I mean, if that is what happened in the animated one, then yeah, I'm being too harsh a little bit. That's fine. Um, Mostly just the dialogue with Zuko then that really bothered me. Just kind of like it just instantly explains his background, what he's doing, and all
Yeah.
that. I feel like and you could tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like the animated one kind of held off on like why exactly he was there or something. I don't know, or like at least it didn't directly told you as much as this show did.
They space it out, not immediately all at once.
Then yeah, that's definitely a problem
But I
with
think
that.
generally speaking, David, I think the dialogue was a bit of an issue for me here, all throughout the episode. It's not the worst I've ever heard,
Mm-hmm.
but it did come across like, hearing the dialogue, it just felt like the people were going out of their way to come up with different ways to say the exact same kind of information, and then also kind of drag it out. Well, maybe not drag it out. Maybe get it out of the way with quickly, because they are trying to condense it after all, right? Um, they've got like 22 episodes worth of story, and they're gonna smush that into 8. And so I think the idea is they're trying to do this in fast forward. Because to
Yeah.
me, I think a big flaw of the episode is just the flow of it. There
Mm-hmm.
really wasn't any kind of flow. It just kind of like things just happened, and kind of awkwardly too. Like, I know we start off in the past, and then halfway through we get into, it feels anyway, halfway through that Sokka and Katara let Aang out, and then things happen from there on out. But like, and then we end with the Southern Air Temple, and it's just like, it to me, the flow of it didn't work. It
Mm-hmm.
felt awkward. It felt very much like, oh, you're just trying to speed run through this.
Yeah, speedrun. And I mean, that's part of the problem with the dialogue. It's just a lot of it's so forced, feels forced
Yes,
because they're trying to
yes.
rush to like one scene to the next and all that. So, yeah, a lot of the dialogue had problems with it. Minor changes, I mean, I don't know. I liked the uh Sokka's and Katara's home was a little bit bigger, seemed bigger. I liked that there was like a lot more people. That was okay. Um, I like the fight between Sokka and Zuko. There
By the way,
was
real quick, I would wager why you didn't see a lot of people in the first episode was because it costs money on animated shows for how many people you see there. So
Mhm.
I would guess why it seemed like it was just a small village, because that's all they could afford to do.
Mhm.
So just to be clear about that, I think maybe in actuality, the Southern Water Tribe should ideally be a little bit bigger than just that. Um, but that didn't look bad.
Mhm. No, yeah. But yeah, like I said, I like the fight between Sokka and Zuko. Um, I think in the animated one, it was a little bit more jokey. Like he was just kind of like, "Ah."
It wasn't a fight.
Yeah, it wasn't
He
a
just
fight.
he just smacks him. That's it.
Yeah,
It was not a fight.
this one, I like how they went, especially when he told him like, "Oh, come on, leader to leader, like let's go," and so I like how you provoked him to do it. So that was really nice. Uh, and this is ridiculous. So I mean, just skip to the part where he gets captured. They had the moment. Aang and Iroh,
Iroh.
they had that little talk. I don't like when he asked them like, "Oh, why did the Fire Nation attack us?" I feel like Iroh. I mean, again, this could be me thinking third season. I don't know, but I feel like Iroh would have just straight up told them, "It's like we wanted power. Like like I don't know. To me, I don't like that he's doing this whole like, well, we kind of wanted this or we kind of wanted that. It's like no. Like to me, Aro seems like the type of person that's like he knows where he's come from. He knows like who his people are, and he would have just. I think it. I don't think he would have found it shameful in the sense that he just like yeah, people wanted power and all that, but like, and that's kind of the whole point of his character is that he's seen the error of his ways, and he wants.
At this point, he should already be a member of the White Lotus.
Yeah, for sure, and all that. But
so like, yeah, but I think like look, there's a lot to say there, right? With what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Let me see if I can remember everything, and then Iroh, to me, has always been a character that has exemplified dimensions. I don't think I got the sense until the end of the first season that this guy really wasn't in it. Well, that's not true. I got a sense very early on that he really wasn't in it for his nation. He was just there for Zuko. Mm-hmm. But I think by the end of it, it became much more clearer that was never even a question for him. Like this was always a person when we first meet that his nationality is not the dominating force of his identity, and he very much has reckoned with the faults of his nation. Mm-hmm. I don't think that was evident from the beginning of it. To be fair, though, I think the answer he gave Aang here was very much a politician answer. Mm-hmm. He didn't really answer the question. I can't help but wonder if maybe it was because there was also a guard there. But I don't know if Iroh would care about a guard being there. Mm-hmm. Also, and maybe it makes even more sense to think perhaps that's just a fault of the writers not understanding the material. That would make more sense considering what we already know. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I wanted to ask you, just like taking a step back here. Was Iroh at this point considered an exile? Was he considered an outcast as well? Because one of the things I didn't quite get until he was declared a traitor, wrongly, obviously, by Azula, I want to say, right? Is that what happened? Or someone declared him a traitor. Mm-hmm. Maybe, yeah. After season 1 happened. But he's with Zuko. Zuko's the one that's banished. He has all the shame that's being forced on him by the Fire Nation. Does that also extend to Iroh? Like, I thought Iroh was like the famous General Iroh. Like he mm-hmm. What happened?
I don't think it extended to him, although there was a piece of dialogue in the live action one where I felt like Zuko was saying like everyone in the ship was also in exile. I don't know. There was this piece of dialogue where he was like, "Oh, we've all." He didn't say these exact words, but like a bit to me, it almost implied like as if everyone in that ship was also exiled from the Fire Nation. I could have just been misreading it. I don't know. But for Uncle Iroh, though, I don't think he was exiled. I think he just was like, "No, I want to like take care of my nephew. He needs someone by his side," or something like that. Especially because since he is the future king, maybe he thought. I mean, I think it's very obvious that he went with him because that is like another son to him and all that. And since he is the future king, or future Fire Lord, he probably wants to like make him good, put him on the right path, and all that. So yeah, I don't think the Uncle Iroh was exiled himself.
Could it be also that part of why he is with Zuko is because, I guess this goes back into answering the question as to like, at what point did Iroh no longer consider himself a part of the regime of the Fire Nation? At what point, not that he was ever banished, but did he consider himself to be in exile from his nation because he no longer believed in what they stood for?
Well, the thing though is, I bring it back to Aang and Iroh's conversation, the part of the reason why I said like I feel like Iroh would have said we wanted power, it's because like he just knows that that's who his nation is. Like he literally says fire is the element of power. That's one of the lines in the second season and all that. And so I feel like for him, it's like it's not that he put himself in exile of the Fire Nation or anything like that. He just knows that there is flaws within our nation and it needs to be amended, especially because we've thrown the balance off of this world and all
Mm-hmm.
that. And so, yeah, I don't think, for me at least, I don't think he's someone who kind of like pushed himself away from his people, from his culture or anything like that. He just knows it needs to
No.
be amended. That's why I was like saying I don't like that he gave that politician's answer to Aang and all that.
Yeah.
I feel like it could have been cool too. Of like for this show specifically, he would have been like because we wanted power, and it's like oh dang, he's like he's really into like the whole Fire Nation thing. Like it could have been a trick for people who've never seen the show before to be like oh dang, like this guy literally wants power because he's like because of that dialogue and all that. But then when later on you see it's like no, that's just part of our people, but you know we don't need all the power in the world or something like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm.
So after that,
Aang escapes. He got the keys from one of the guards or something, like tricked him and all that. But this part is so dumb because he flies away, but with his stick, then gets hit by a fireball from Zuko, and he starts falling. It's supposed to be this like intense thing of like, oh my gosh, is he gonna? But they already showed him flying. They showed him flying twice, so I don't know what the fuck the point was that. But it was literally just because Katara and Sokka come in, save him from falling, even though it wasn't necessary. But that was literally the whole entire point. And yeah, there are some nice moments with Katara and Aang when he showed her how to bend for the first time. She literally couldn't even like barely could make anything move with her water bending. But then Aang comes in and she's like, "Oh, cool! Like I finally like, understand some part of bending." So that was really nice. And then I don't know how I feel about this. This is the one where I'm like, this is the tricky part of the whole try not to be 1-to-1. But when they go to the air temple and goes into the Avatar state because he gets mad they killed everyone and all that. But it was his memory of Macchiazzo that calms him down and not Katara being like, hey, I lost people too and all that, blah, blah. Like, I know how you feel. I'm sorry what happened, blah, and everything. And I don't know. Like it's really tricky because I'm someone with the knowledge of all 3 seasons. I feel like what he was thinking about with Macchiazzo would have worked a lot better in season 3 when he has to decide to kill the Fire Lord. I don't know. So that's kind of tricky. I'm curious if anyone who hasn't seen the animated one what they thought about that. But yeah, that one's very tough. And then I hated the ending because Aang gives this like little speech of like I don't know what's gonna happen next and all that blah blah blah. It's supposed to be like on to the next adventure type of thing. But he literally the episode ends with him literally saying, I'm the Avatar. In the animated one, they tell him, why did you tell us you were the Avatar? Because I didn't want to be. Legend of Korra, their first line is, I'm the Avatar. Deal with it. Again, for those of you that got bothered by that line, go fuck yourself. Because the whole point of her, Korra, did I say Katara before? I meant Korra. Korra saying that
you
line.
said Korra. You said Korra. I want to say you did.
Yeah. The reason why Korra says that is because it's to differentiate between her and Aang to like let us know like, hey, this isn't Aang. Don't compare it to him and all that, blah, blah, blah. Like that was the whole reason why. There's literally this amazing moment in the second season where Aang gets told, you are the Avatar. Like, you have to deal with it. And, the music builds up and you get that shot in the introduction from behind and everything. It's great. But yeah, the whole entire point of his arc from season 1 and 2 is that he has to learn to accept the fact that he's the Avatar. So that's annoying.
I mean, the last few minutes, you trailed off on some pretty, like, seismic things. You take away a pretty key character role from Katara,
Mm-hmm.
who's one of the co-leads, and then this with Aang. Well, I mean, I think because this is one of the big changes, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong here, but because we started off this episode with like the backstory, Aang didn't make the decision to leave because he didn't want the burden of the Avatar. How the show treats it is he's bummed that he's the Avatar, and then he goes for a break.
Yeah.
And he happens to be caught in the storm. That's fucking terrible.
Yeah, and he leaves.
Yeah.
He leaves the day the comet is up and they attack. Part of the reason why it's so sad of what happened is because had he not left, like I mean, who knows if they would have been saved? Like, yeah, who knows? But like, he does feel bad about that. I don't know. Just it could have been that day that he left. I'm talking about the animated one. It could have been that day that he left, or it could have been the next day. But it also could have been just like months later and all that. But just because he left, he never would have known what would have happened. You know. But
how many things can you fuck up?
Mm-hmm.
These are pretty big fuck ups.
I know.
Like it really just like if you messed up this badly already, this is just one episode.
I know Alice gonna be watching it right now. I'm very curious what she thought, especially the introduction.
She hasn't seen it.
She hasn't
seen it. Is she watching it right now?
I don't know. I mean, you know, I'm gonna text her.
Text her right now and see that we're that we're doing the show and we want to know if she has any initial reactions. Because yeah, I gotta say I did like on the whole, it was not the worst live action remake I've ever seen. But yeah, it just didn't work. It didn't flow. The dialogue was pretty bad. I think the way that they moved things around was pretty nonsensical. It's a lot of the same symptoms. They needlessly stretch things out. That we see things that we didn't really ever need to see in the first place. I found some of the acting to be kind of stilted. In that I didn't get a lot of feeling from certain words. That were being said. I think it does give off that the cast is like trying to do an impression of some sort. I don't know. They're just trying to act like the actual characters. I wanted to ask you something that I've noticed myself. Do you like how the costumes look?
It's just too clean. That's really the problem. They're way too clean. They need to be raggedy. They need to be, I don't know. Yeah, it's really the big part. I mean, the only costume that really looked cool. Oh wait, hold on. Alex just texted me. She sent a photo.
Oh boy.
Oh, she's barely watching it. Yeah, she's barely starting it. The first episode.
Tell her to text. We're doing a recording right now, and she can text us if he wants. To me, here's the thing. I think they did a concentrated effort to really combat a lot of what befalls so many of the live action remakes, which is the costumes just kind of like are non-existent, whereas in the animation they represented so much of who they were as people and as characters. So I think that there was a good intent in that they were trying to translate that and bring it over to the live action, because the colors do stick out. But because they stick out so much and it's in like a live action environment, and because they look so clean, I'm constantly distracted by it. And I'm like, and it's trying to, this is one of the ways where it's trying to be as much as it possibly can be faithful to the animation, but it worked because that was animation. And you take it to live action, it's not going to be a one-to-one translation.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened here was, too often it took me out of it, and it looked like I was looking at a bunch of people who were in cosplay. I'm gonna be honest with you.
And that's the thing with cosplay. People always like mention that. It's like, oh, how come this cosplay looks better than the one in the show and all that? And it's like, okay, first of all, the cosplay that you're looking at is just a picture. You're looking at it from a certain angle. Once you see it in motion, this is where lighting really takes into effect. You're not gonna think the same thing, you know. And so it's the same thing with this. Like I said, it looks too clean. Honestly, they look kind of cheap too. I'm sorry, but like, I don't know. There's just something about the way the material looks on the screen that makes it look like, I don't know how to describe it. Like makes it look rough in the sense, and I don't think it should.
Yeah.
I mean, I will praise the live action movie for this. Their costumes were okay in that one. You know, it wasn't too much, but like it got the idea of it. You know, it wasn't exactly like the animated one, but it didn't need to be.
Yeah, this is one of the things. Like, again, you could have easily fixed this if you attempted to make an adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what they did was they just copied the same costumes. They made a big effort to make it look exactly like they did in the animated version, but that's not going to work in a live action setting. You should know this stuff. I can't. Why are people this like unaware? It's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it with your eyes. It doesn't look great.
Mm-hmm. And also, why it's 8 episodes, right?
Yeah.
10 episodes, for fuck's sake. 11 episodes. It's fine. 2 episodes each one. I don't understand. That should have been like the first thing to come to your mind when you make this adaptation. It's like, how many episodes are there? 22? Okay, we'll make it 11. And then that's it. And then you could have, because these episodes are so short, I mean, the animated one, like, you could have added a lot more. You didn't need to add that whole airbenders dying, the whole plan and everything, but like, just more between the characters themselves. That was the biggest thing we kind of praised for the live action Little Mermaid. We were like, okay, these added scenes between Ariel and Eric, great. Like we like that was like the biggest praise we gave that movie.
I will say, when I watched it initially, I was like, that wasn't so bad. Wasn't good, but it wasn't so bad. It's aged a lot worse for 2 reasons in just like less than 24 hours. It didn't make an impression, first of all, and second of all, I went back and watched the original first episode of the animated series, and I blew it out of the water. Even just like, I think a big difference is, I'm not going to say that Sokka and Katara were terrible in the live action, but they are in comparison to the animation, because in the first few minutes, so much character, so much dynamic dialogue, like just boom, boom, boom. Go back and if you want, just like watch the first episode, and you just like, wow. Well, I guess the first 2 episodes, but it's like, wow, damn, the differences between the two are stark.
Okay.
What?
Just said, it's cool to see the airbenders fight, but I hate sitting at. Also, I cannot believe they did Monk, whatever his name is. I don't know how to spell it. Look like a chump. I gotta disagree with that. I don't know. I feel like they made it look fine. Well, I mean, actually, no.
What does she mean by a chump?
Well,
like,
I mean,
the costume or like his character?
I think she's talking about his death. Where, like, if you remember in the animated one, we see like a bunch of soldiers.
But is she that far into the episode though? Like that happens toward the end of it.
No, that was in the beginning. That was an introduction. That was like, wasn't it?
Do we see the death? I forgot already. You know what? I'm just gonna go with what you said.
No, it was in the beginning.
But that technically speaking, the animation did do it better.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like, because you see his skeletal remains amongst like basically an entire army.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't going to be anywhere near to compare it to, because again, with live action, you can only go smaller in scale. That's what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What was the part that you disagreed with?
No, actually, never mind. Scratch that. I understand why she
Okay.
said that, because again, you see like dozens of bodies around him when you see his
Right.
body and all that, but he didn't kill one person in the live action. So yeah, I get it. She says, "You're telling me we see multiple air people get burned alive, but we don't see him whooping some Fire Nation ass."
Yeah. Yeah, that was a choice that they made here. We get to see people be burned alive. What do we think of that?
I didn't mind it. Just to kind of like
differentiate it, right?
Differentiate it, bring intensity to the whole idea of like the war and all that. I mean, that would have really worked on the whole. They don't want to go to adventure. They don't want the characters going on adventures type of thing. You know, like make it look. Because I think that would have convinced me too. Like we see that, like people getting burned alive and everything and all that, and Aang deciding like, okay, now we gotta like, I gotta prepare and all that. That would have convinced me. So.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's
Appa
everything.
and Momo look great.
I haven't seen Momo, but
no,
yeah, no, I did.
Oh, this is I began watching episode 2.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I did watch the first. I got up until they meet Suki, I think.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but they're man, it was bad.
Really?
So immediately, like, there was the scene where they have a meeting, and then after the meeting, Katara, Aang, Sokka, and Suki are walking, and literally, like, Sokka is all over Suki, and like every other sentence he's trying to like impress her. But the dialogue is so bad. Like it is not great. He's trying too hard. And then at the same time, Katara and Aang are just like standing there walking with them. They're not saying anything, but they're giving reactions. And it doesn't work, especially because Aang very clearly understands that Sokka is hitting on her. And I don't feel Aang is supposed to understand those things yet, or see those signs just yet. If I recall, Aang has to go through something earlier in the season, or early on in this season, where he begins to even register what it even means to, I guess, show signs of flirtation, right? But like very clearly here in this version, Aang sees it and is laughing and making fun of Sokka for failing to hit it off with Suki. It really came off bad to me. I was like kind of cringing, like, oh, that's not good. Yeah.
Dang. So,
yeah, I don't know when we'll. Yeah, basically, we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. I assume at some point we're gonna make our way through all of the episodes, and we will have a review of it. Again, I make no promises as to when that will be. Maybe it'll be next week. Who knows? It ain't that long, so we'll see. Yes.
Alice said, "Why is Sokka not the only male that was left behind?" I think he's the oldest male there.
He is the oldest. You know, it's not the only one though. That being said, the other males are like
children.
They're little kids. They're like a little bit older than toddlers. So it's like in the animated show, he wasn't the only male, but he was. Well, in a way, he was, because the rest were just like small boys. They were small boys that would be like in 2nd or 3rd grade. Like, we don't consider them men, do we? Like, they're helpless children.
She says that's why he has a superiority complex, but also so insecure.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's her interpretation of it. I just know that it wasn't. He wasn't the only male, but he was the only male his age or anywhere
Yeah.
near his age.
Mhm.
He was the closest thing to a man. And one of the things that Sokka holds dearest to him is that he was placed in charge by
Mhm.
his father, which is kind of stupid because Gran should be in charge.
Yeah, Gran should be in charge. I mean, you can also say like he was just left in charge protecting the village. Or maybe Gran was still like the leader or something. I don't know.
Maybe that's what Sokka was led to believe, that he
Yeah.
was the one that was really in charge.
Mm-hmm. For sure. But I mean, I will say this though, like in the live action one, I like the moment with Katara telling him like, being a leader is more than just, you know, getting fish and like protecting this place. Like he gotta give them some hope, and I think that's what Aang can do. And so this can be this thing of like he learns how to be a leader throughout the 3 seasons and all that. I mean, that's kind of what it is in the animated one,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe they can put more of a focus on that in the live action. So who knows?
Okay. Do we have any other thoughts?
I know I had one, but I got distracted by Ale.
That happens.
Mm-hmm.
She is known to be that way.
Man, what was it? What were we talking about before?
Kyoshi.
No.
There have been some things that I should share. I haven't seen it yet, but there have been some things that I've been sharing with you guys that people have already been complaining about of the show. And I'm curious to hear what you think about it. It's actually a lot of things, as a matter of fact. The first one here. So they really just took the humor out of the Avatar, The Last Airbender, huh?
They're trying.
Holy crap, dude. The live action Avatar made a lot of changes I really disagree with. But how they handled Boomy and Aang was so bad. Aang just immediately recognizes Boomy, taking all drama and anticipation away from their confrontation. We haven't seen that part yet, but
no.
Wow.
No, I'm so worried.
The Netflix series made Roku irrelevant. Kyoshi is more a spotlight avatar now, which is fine. She's cool, but Roku is kind of a big character, given he was the previous avatar and was always there to aid Aang and warn him about Sozin's comet. He's barely there now. And I did read that someone replied to it saying that he's barely there as an understatement. He's like non-existent.
Yeah. And it's actually really important too, because he puts the blame on himself for causing all of this. So like
his backstory is interesting too, and it's directly linked to the fucking Fire Lord who started this shit. Like and it's also linked into the dynamic that we get between Aang and Zuko, because they become the embodiment of what Roku and Sozin should have been. Because that's brought back into, it's one of the great episodes of season 3.
He could have added more to this, especially because I mean, who knows if they thought about doing the whole background story between him and the Fire Lord and all that. But you could have changed it in this one where he was like, "You need to learn the elements." Like he's really like pushing Aang, like you better like learn this, you gotta like fix this and all that, blah blah blah. And like later on, you learn it's like, "I'm sorry, like it's all my fault. I never should have like pushed you to this or something like that," you know? So.
First impressions while watching Netflix's Avatar. Why is Katara soft-spoken? She is a character that has steel in her bones. Who could make you feel ashamed just by pointing a finger at you? You haven't seen too much attitude yet. Somebody else. Where is Katara's attitude in the live action? Her character is just boring to me. Next. Boomy apparently challenges Aang to a fight to the death and constantly rags on him for goofing off and not caring about responsibilities. And then and then he says, "Ain't no fucking way, ain't no fucking way, ain't no fucking way, ain't no fucking way." This guy, the Boomy that we know, what did he say? This place is really hopping. We're talking about Boomy here.
No.
No.
Oh my god. He is literally Aang already like goofs off in the show in the animated one. Boomy is 10 times that. Why? Oh my god. I don't know. Boomy's such a great character. I just love that line. It's like you all play an important role in this, including Momo.
I love that. Yes.
Yes. That's how crazy he is. Like you're thinking like what the fuck is this creature so important for? And then like he ends up next to Aang in the final battle and all that. So it's like, oh yeah, he does play kind of a big role.
Houston Colley, you could write a whole PhD thesis on the moronic writing in the next Netflix Avatar pilot. Shows for adults can't get to the point or convey information organically. Shows for adults need 30 minutes of setup and 3 prologues to help tiny adult brains understand what they're seeing. The fact that a cartoon can establish in 2 minutes what it takes a live action remake 30 minutes to accomplish should show you the extent to which we now believe more content equals better show and information equals characterization. Consciousness and show don't tell used to be virtues. Average Avatar live action remake consumer. Ah, yes. They give us the original voiceover narration to Gran. What a cute callback to my childhood. Anyway, I'm glad they explained the concept of the Avatar 14 times. I'd forgotten about that part.
Yes, literally, Alec texted me right now. It's like not Gran giving the fucking fucking news. Yes. She also texted, "Why the fuck is he flying?"
That's a pretty big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Him being able to fly just like that, and then the show doesn't bat an eye at it. Honestly, episode 1 looked and felt really weird. The pacing, writing, and even the acting felt stilted, awkwardly dashing to the Sparks notes of 3.5 episodes with no room for characters to breathe. And they changed one thing about Aang's origin, and I hate it. Seems about right.
Mm-hmm.
Seems about right. There was more. Jesus, man. What did they do? That being said, the reviews, some have been positive, but not glowing the way that I think some people would think.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood Reporter called it a major letdown. Discussing film said that it failed to capture the spirit of the original series due to extremely poor writing and bland visuals. Quote, feels like a show made by an algorithm catered to the kind of fans that hate filler and side stories in animation. Variety called it a beautifully crafted disappointment. Okay. Andres Cabrera said, I wanted to love Avatar, but unfortunately it didn't work for me. The cast does their best and delivers some special moments, but overall the show feels uninspired and lifeless. It's a well-intentioned but yet hollow attempt at recreating the magic of the original. And I have seen a lot more of this kind of talk all over Twitter right now. People are like watching this in real time because it literally just dropped. I think the day that we're recording this. See, I'm even seeing something right now. So did anyone at Netflix watch Korra? Because Aang flying around with a glider is crazy. It's an extremely rare ability that requires relinquishing all earthly tethers, something Aang would refuse to do. Lol, that was one of the most impactful stories of Korra too. Is that what you were speaking about?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I completely forgot about that too. Yeah, Aang is.
You're right.
Aang is someone who wouldn't do that. He would not detach himself from the things that he loves. So
then Aang whips out the glider from his hammer space. I love that. Hammer space.
yeah.
Thank you, Across the Spider-Verse, for that. Ay, por Dios. He has hammer space. I love that line so much. God, it's such a good movie.
Yes.
You could watch it all day long. In what's SWT?
Yes.
So Aang whips out the glider from his hammer space in the SWT fight and flew with it for the first time, running from Zuko's ship. Did that happen in the live action too? Did he use the glider to get out of the ship?
Yeah, he used the glider.
Okay, just making sure. Like, why would you show us he's capable of flight just to follow up with him using his glider? I don't get it.
Yeah, like at the very least, show us there's a difference between flying with the glider and flying without it or something. Maybe he's faster with the glider. I don't know, because it takes a lot more energy to produce wind to fly by himself. I don't know.
Someone tried to say, oh, he's using tornadoes to lift and drop himself, knowing damn well wasn't no tornadoes. This is flight outside of the Avatar state. Like, why would they do that? I feel like they're trying, or I feel like they're about to be crazy and consistent with him flying when it's convenient.
Yeah. The first episode literally does that. Like, he uses the glider to escape Zuko. He gets hit and he starts falling, but like they literally shoot it in a way. It's like, oh my gosh, he's falling. Like, what's gonna happen to him and all that? But like, what the fuck is the point of that?
I don't know what to say. Somebody else said, this is the one problem I have with the last Airbender series. It forgets to build up to the relationship they are destined to be in. Aang and Katara. And I understand that they are children, but even early on, we get hints that Aang has a crush on Katara. They remove that completely?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, for me, I don't mind it as much, only because this can be like a very slow burn type of thing. I don't know, but
with 8 episodes.
When I say slow burn, I mean like third season.
Okay. Okay. I'm like, but yeah, I mean, but there were plenty of moments where it's like he clearly liked her.
Yeah, for sure.
But removing that, what else have you seen?
No, nothing much.
There was this really awkward moment on the red carpet where Scott Mantz asked the actress that played Katara if she wished that Aang and Katara ended up together in the ending of the original show, not realizing that they do end up together in the original show. Scott Mantz.
Is he the writer?
He's no. He's the actress for Katara gave an interview on the red carpet to the premiere, and one of the reporters, who, you know how they ask questions of the stars as they go into he asked her a question not knowing the show really.
What the fuck? What was her response? I would love to know what her response was. She's gonna be like,
I think I don't know. I think she said, like, what Avatar have you been watching?
Yeah.
I think she's
give him shit. Yeah, do that.
and then even funnier about that, the actor Ken Lung, who plays Zhao, I believe, said he had no idea what The Last Airbender was and thought he was auditioning for James Cameron's Avatar movies. He said, I thought I was going to be blue.
Oh my God. I feel like you could be trolling, but I don't know.
Who knows what to believe anymore, right? Like,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I also wasn't a fan of the Avatar state scene at the end of that first episode. I'm like, there should be something more to this instead of just Sokka and Katara being freaked out and running away.
Hmm.
It didn't quite. Oh, I've seen because I mean she's in the poster and why is Azula in this season?
I don't know. What is she going to do? You know? Because like she literally doesn't show up till the very end. So
Like the last scene,
yeah.
and like says not a word.
And why is May and Ty Lee there with her already? She
They
picks them
are.
up. Yeah, they are.
Let me see here. Brendan Hodges. There's a lot of reasons the Netflix show doesn't work. It's a premise and world too clearly designed for animation. But going full Hobbit by investing a long, lore heavy prologue that delays the start of the story is definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm. Literally, the intro in the animated one, it's perfect. I can say the whole thing word per word. Okay, didn't need to add more to it.
Man, it's one of those things where like the more you think about it, the worse it gets, huh?
Yeah, it's just,
This already feels like so much worse than where we even started.
and I mean, honestly, like, there's no excuse for this. Seriously, like, you have pretty near perfect show already. You just have to put it into live action. Like, and I don't understand how you can make so many changes and all, and have them be just the worst choices.
I mean, these are pretty fucking tone deaf choices, David,
Mm.
from these characters are concerned. Like, you fundamentally don't understand who these people are, which seems to happen a lot on the show. What happened now?
So he's a Jedi getting the keys, and I actually missed this moment. So I guess I thought he might have just like pickpocket the guy. I'm assuming he probably like uses airbending to like pick it up or something. And
Oh yeah, I know what she means. Yeah, it did kind of look that way.
okay, yeah, I missed that part. I was looking at my phone in that part. I just assumed that he pickpocket the guy, but that's what happened. I mean, I guess that's fine. I don't know. And maybe I gotta rewatch that moment. I guess see how it went down. Oh boy.
Yeah, a lot of fun stuff here, isn't it?
Mm.
Well, we can continue this conversation the next time Alexis messages us if we're still here on the recording. If not, it will go on for the following week. Before we leave today, let's talk about the Bad Batch.
The bad bitch.
The Bad Batch, the final season. Um, we both have seen the first 3 episodes. I think it was a very, 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 very wise decision to release these 3 at the same time.
Mm.
So I think they're very much like building off one another. I think it kind of would have been frustrating if we had to like spend 3 weeks with just these episodes. I think they are great on their own, but I think they're that much more when viewed as one experience.
Mm.
That's what I feel like. Um, just to get the obvious out of the way with, it is crazy good how good this show looks. Like, just pristine,
Mhm.
impeccable. It is like Jesus Christ. It's like looking at a screensaver. It's amazing. Um, Kevin Kiner's music always delivers. Um, especially with a lot with where we are with most of these episodes. We're in the location Mount Tanis, that is very much mysterious and eerie, and I think Kevin Kiner provides the musical sensibilities for that. I love that we actually spend a lot of time with this location, because it is very ominous. We begin these 3 episodes by one of the Empire's own crashing outside of the perimeter, and then them refusing to go help them out, and immediately you're like, what the fuck is out there?
Mhm.
Where are these people? What else is going on here? Because I think, look, let's just be clear. It's been obvious for a while now what's happened and what's been happening in the background. Um, it's and I understand why some people would have a problem with it because it is lore building and it's just providing a lot of the behind the scenes of what was going on for how Emperor Palpatine came back in the worst Star Wars movie ever made. Um, And because it's so linked to that, it's not necessarily a positive thing for a lot of people. And I get that. I truly do. But to me, it's more about execution. And I think I really have enjoyed, even though I know what the answer is, for whatever reason, I have enjoyed the mystery, or even just seeing how it all kind of panned out. And it's just a nice bit of recontextualization, because basically what ended up happening was that the Palpatine eliminated the Kaminoans, but stole their technology for himself only. And the entire time, they've been working on this Project Necromancer, which is bringing him back from the dead. But specifically where he can be able to transfer his essence into a new body, but the M count that they keep talking about, that's the midichlorian count, is not diminished. That way he can still have his same abilities and not come back as a weaker individual. Um, because that's ultimately what he's obsessed with, is power, because he never really intends to ever leave the Empire. That's what it is, which is why he cares so much about it and why this has all been done in secret. But this is the real mission here, and the other stuff. This is how what I love about the show is it just shows you how. Um, Let me choose my words carefully here. It shows you how brilliant sometimes dictators can be. Because look at what Palpatine did here. Like, he basically had the Kaminoans eliminated. Um, no one cared about it up until it was revealed that a ship did bomb them. So he threw one of his own under the bus. They were arrested. They took the blame. Um, all the while, he took all the cloning technology for himself, and he phased out the clones. Um, and now he owns the cloning business, just like that. Um, so I enjoy his, brief appearances here. I like Dr. Hemlock. Um, I am quite fascinated by Nala Se, because she has been a character that for the longest time you don't quite really know if there's a soul there or not. You know how the Kaminoans act, but I think consistently she's shown that she really does care about Omega, because she literally just keeps falling on the sword to protect her. Um, Speaking of which, uh, Omega's a fucking star here. Like,
Mhm.
I really, really have like grown to love her as a character. Like, this is really her show, and I think, to me, we even said this in the very first episode years ago, David, when we watched. It's like, yeah, the Bad Batch are great. Like, they're entertaining enough, but she's the one that's kind of keeping it together. Like,
Mhm.
she's the glue that keeps it together. And I'm actually kind of happy that we spend most of the time in these episodes with her, because I do find her the most endearing and the most interesting presence on the show. Not that I didn't enjoy the stuff with Crosshair. I'm sorry, with Hunter and with Wrecker, and their side mission with the cadets and the previous lab that was bombed. But ultimately, I mean, you got the two best characters on the show. You got Omega and Crosshair, them teaming up. Um, and I never would have thought that they would have already have broken out already, especially on the day the Emperor visits.
Yeah.
I was half convinced, are they gonna steal the Emperor's ship? That would have been funny.
I know, right?
I would have been like, imagine the response to that.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But also, I really like that moment too of their escape, just because it really does show how much improvement Omega has done. Because before, she would help out a bit with the crew and all that, but she was still just in the background. It was always the Bad Batch doing all the cool shit. There's no note like, nah, she was like in the front lines. She was the one coming up with plans and everything, and it was kind of cool that towards the end.
And to be clear here, like, yeah, she had help from Nala Se, but it wasn't that much help. Like, she was like, "Here, take my key, my data pad." Omega was like making things up on the spot. That's incredible to me.
And then like Crosshair kind of like encouraging her, like keeping her calm. It's like, oh man, because like when they make it to the ship, she's kind of like, oh shoot, I fucked up. Like I thought this was a good plan. And he's just like, okay, chill.
We made it this far.
We made it. Yeah, we made it this far. Plan again. And then he goes, do you remember Plan 72? She's like, yeah, I remember all the plans. So yeah, that's cool. And it's also, speaking of a show that shows and doesn't tell, so many moments in these episodes where there's like zero dialogue, and I love it. You can do that with this show too, especially with this style of animation, because I feel like with 2D animation, like you can't get it as impactful as it is with this show and all that. So I feel like this is really one of the few animated shows that like does take advantage of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you do notice as far as the camera work, right? Because there's a lot of emphasis on, especially with the first episode, Confined, where we begin with her in her room/cell with the dripping water faucet. We return back to that visual. The one that we keep coming back to throughout all of the episodes is the blood wheel, basically. How it and the sound effect that it like a ticking clock, basically. And then when it reaches 0 hour, it's like ding, 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 and the blood that they needed was Omega's. And I want to say that's pretty clear confirmation that she's some kind of force sensitive.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, like, we have another presence here, which is Amiri, who is also a clone, and she's the one that Omega was cloned from. And the more we delve into Omega's origin, the more fascinated I am. Like, who is she? How is she? Like, how did Nala Se do this? Was it just a freak accident by nature that this happened? But clearly Nala Se has known from the very beginning that she has some kind of force sensitivity, because she can tell the midichlorian count on Omega. And she always kept Omega close to her and not to anybody else. That's fascinating. Even though because this exists in a show of a long-standing franchise, we do ultimately know they're not going to be successful, because if they were successful, that's the whole ball game. They had it right there. Omega's blood is what they needed to make a successful copy, and Palpatine's clones would not have deteriorated. The reason why it took Palpatine like 30 plus years to come back was because his clone body was not great. Like, yeah, he was living, but he wasn't alive. Like, he couldn't move. So he needed, actually, I don't even know what he needed, because I've blocked so much of that movie out of my mind. So I just know that he's alive. And I think he has like a crane that carries him, I think is what happens. And then there's this contrivance called the Force Dyad that he didn't even plan on. He just kind of like, what's this? A Force Dyad? Huh, this is convenient. I'll just take this for myself. And then he comes back to his full form. That was bad. All in all, though, great episodes. I love the pacing of it.
Yeah.
I love the moments of silences. I love the locations. The characterization is great. I love the moments between Omega and Crosshair. Obviously, Palpatine making a guest appearance is also fun to see him. Just to hear Ian McDermott's voice. Oh my God! Anytime he's speaking, it's like there can be nothing of greater importance. Love it. Even the escape sequence was thrilling. I was like literally like holding my breath. I was like, are they gonna make it? Are they gonna make it? Are they gonna make it? It's like, it was what I want out of this show, and it's kind of it all really reminded me of why I've been enjoying this the whole way through. So great job on these guys for doing all this, and I really can't wait to see what happens next.
No, yeah, for sure. Also, I was so sad seeing just Hunter and Wrecker together. It like just them two, but also their suits though, like dirty as fuck. Well, they've been through some shit, you know.
And the ship feels so empty.
Mm-hmm.
There was this one shot where you can see that Hunter was so frustrated because he wasn't quite sure if he was making the gadgets work the way that Tech could make them work, and then he looks at Tech's goggles, who are right like nearby.
Mm-hmm.
That have you seen those crazy theories online?
What?
So in the episode, remember how they made Crosshair and some other prisoners do a patrol? Like they had to walk around, I guess, for some kind of exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a point where he was walking past one masked guard. It looked a lot like remember back last season when they were trying to expose, I believe, Rampart in the Senate. There was this one assassin clone that they caught, and then he killed himself. I think it gives off that kind of energy. But there was some person I saw that was speculating if perhaps that was Tech. And why they would speculate that, I think one of the things is, I think to me, the thing that I give the most credence to that idea is the camera did linger on him. When Crosshair and the prisoners are out of frame, he's alone in the frame. Then the door opens, then he walks out. Why would we need to see that?
Okay.
What did that add to what we were watching? So that's to me the part that seemed the most suspect. But there were literal other people on Twitter who were like going all like full blown conspiracy theory on like selling like that. No. Oh, I love this tweet here. The Empire had to spend 30 plus years throwing magical child blood samples into a blender until eventually getting Snoke and a Palpatine that had to stay plugged into an outlet. Nala Se saved the galaxy by quietly quitting her job. What an icon. I love it.
Yeah.
Her name better be right up there with Luke Skywalker's. Oh God, that was so funny. Let's see here. Oh, there's something happening with Crosshair's arm. What's happening there?
Oh, sorry, I was yawning. I don't know. I don't know if. I mean, I don't think he got like hurt or anything in
It's
last
just the
season.
anxiety, the trauma.
Maybe it could be that.
Uh,
Yeah.
oh, it feels like what's her name? Miri is beginning to feel like she does have a bond with Omega,
Oh
because
yeah.
she did save her life, but she did feel conflicted about it
Mm-hmm. For sure.
at the end of it, and she did give her doll back,
Mm-hmm.
that she had made in there.
No,
Also,
yeah.
what did you make of the really creepy design of where they were keeping that clone when they brought the Emperor in, and they looked like there was like a blood on the floor? Like what's going on in that
Oh
getup?
yeah, yeah. The whole room, like just red lights everywhere and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was kind of weird, but also it just the lighting worked though with Palpatine though, so I liked it.
that's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
That's all that matters. Um, is if it works,
Mhm,
especially the way that it's intended to.
mhm.
What do you think of that idea? What if it is tech?
I don't know. I mean, I like the idea that he died in that moment, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind having everyone back together. So
To be clear, though, I mean, if it is tech, it's maybe not him anymore. Maybe it's his body, but
yeah.
maybe he's been reconditioned. Could that be the case? If it, I
Mhm.
mean, I'm just going off of something that I saw. Um, I do think though it was a pretty like big sacrifice. That being said, wouldn't it be just like Star Wars to just bring a character back from the dead? Because I mean, they just can't help themselves. Um, yeah. One of the things though is, and this is actually pretty fun in thinking about like where the show is going to go, is how is it going to end?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the biggest thing for sure. Because I mean, obviously, we don't want Omega or Hunter to die, but I just don't know where they would go. And I think my biggest thing though is Omega gonna learn how to use the Force or not? That's my biggest thing.
Right. I hope it's not do you think we'll get into a situation where Omega sacrifices herself because she knows how she could lead to the end of all time? Like that, if
Mm-hmm.
she knows. I mean, do the Bad Batch find out what Palpatine's up to? Because if they do, they don't live, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Palpatine even told Hemlock, like, nobody can know about this.
Yeah,
And you even saw how secretive it is. Like, I thought it was pretty interesting how the Emperor just came there in one shuttle.
that's true. With two guards too.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Not even with Darth Vader.
Nope, no.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't think Vader is looped into any of this.
Yeah.
I think you know how Palpatine is. Like this, and the reason why this is there in the first place is to ensure that he never dies. That he would just be forever and ever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Um really, really good batch of episodes. Pun intended. Any other thoughts here?
I think Alia texted me.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. She just says, "Why is Qatar even there?"
Oh shit.
Dang. Okay. So yeah, she's getting pretty annoyed by this episodes.
She sounds pretty annoyed already. I'm
Mhm.
gonna share with you the image of the character I'm talking about. Um, and then some people were literally like pointing to different parts of the body that looked like tech.
Mhm. Oh.
By the way, I'm still not over that because I think Tech was the one that I liked the most, beside Crosshair and Omega, and they kill him off, and I'm like, fuck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see what you mean.
There's somewhat of a resemblance, is there not?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And Hemlock would totally be that kind of like person where it's like, you're gonna take that body and experiment with it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible? Oh, it could actually be kind of nasty. What if like because Tech died, so they literally resurrected him?
Yeah, I mean that's something he could definitely do. Would do.
But like a zombie, basically.
Yeah.
I do wonder though, what's the worst possible case scenario? And honestly, I'm not even sure how much we care anymore because it can't be any more bad than Rise of Skywalker, right? But what if Omega is connected to Rey's lineage?
I mean,
To be,
maybe.
is it possible? Because I mean, wasn't Rey supposed to be? Is Rey a direct clone of Palpatine, or is she the? Is she supposed to be like the grand? No, well, she's the daughter of Palpatine's clone.
Yeah, that's what it is. The only thing though is, I don't know if it was established whether the mom or the dad were the clone though. Pretty sure that, I mean, I'm pretty sure it would be the dad, but I don't know. Yeah, that part of it was confusing. So I don't know. That's a hard thing to decide. I don't know how I feel about that. Mm-hmm.
Right. Also, don't you love how freaking cool and creepy Palpatine looks?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That
Like,
when they first opened the door to the like secret place and all those like red lasers hit his face and everything, that was a cool shot. I loved it.
somebody tweeted a screenshot from Jyn Erso in Rogue One, a Star Wars story, where they're in the Imperial files, and apparently one of the names that they come by is called Mark Omega. I don't think Omega was anywhere even close to being an idea when they made this movie. So
yeah.
I don't think it was intended to be a connection. That being said, I would not put it past them for them to go back and say, aha, it was a connection all along.
Yeah.
Here's how.
I mean, they could just use it to like just be like, oh, hey, that's one thing. Let's just use it in our show. Fuck it.
Yeah, man. I'm truly quite curious to see what direction they take and where they go. But as soon as we get more episodes from the Bad Batch, we'll come back here and talk a bit more about it, as well as and I'm sure you already know, we're gonna have a lot more to say about Last Airbender for sure. With that, we're gonna go ahead and close it off here. That being said, by the next time we do a podcast, we might have already seen Dune. So there's a lot of things we gotta like get to getting and everything. So thank you for watching and listening to us, guys. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.